Crip Mac was released from prison today on his birthday via Lupe.
Yo, his birthday, his freedom day. The 55th Street General finally touched down. Mac been released earlier, but before, cause could even breathe that free air, the county slapped them cold bracelets right back on his wrists. The cuffs was just the warm-up. What went down next left the internet straight jaw-dropped. The day the general walked. Yo, January 30th, 2026. Stamp that date in the books of internet rap history, fam, cause what popped off on that square was the type of bait and switch Hollywood writers would body somebody to script. But even then, audiences would call it cap cause it's too grimy to be real. Trevor Hurd, the man the whole world know as Crip Mac, the unfiltered, face-tatted, 55th Street neighborhood Crip who flipped raw gang culture, wild jail tales, and the type of street talk most folks too shook to even whisper into a whole internet wave, was supposed to step out them federal doors a free man. The universe was penning bars, handing cuss his freedom on the exact same day his mama brought him into this world, and every soul tapped into the Crip Mac saga felt that cosmic weight heavy on their chest. Confirmation spread like a brush fire through every platform that matters. Via Lupe Gotti and associates close to Hurd, the word went out, the general was coming home. No Jumper posted the confirmation to their millions of followers. Instagram Reels flooded the timeline with footage of the celebration. The energy was electric, the kind of collective exhale that happens when someone the internet genuinely cares about, for better or worse, for entertainment or empathy, finally catches a break.
Crip Mac was released from prison today on his birthday via Lupe.
But before we get to the gut punch, and trust, the gut punch is coming like a freight train around a blind corner, you need to understand exactly what put this man in a federal cage in the first place, because the depth of his legal entanglement is what makes everything that followed so devastatingly predictable. Hurd was serving a 33-month federal sentence, 2 years and 9 months, for possession of ammunition as a convicted felon. That charge came from a September 2023 arrest, where law enforcement recovered a ghost gun on his person, an untraceable firearm with no serial number, loaded with live rounds. For a man already carrying a felony record, that is the kind of discovery that makes prosecutors salivate and defense. Attorneys reached for the aspirin. As Billboard reported, U.S. Marshals executed the arrest the moment state charges were dropped, performing a cinematic handoff between jurisdictions that blindsided everyone watching. The ghost gun's firing pin was defective. The weapon could not actually fire, so the feds could only tag him with the ammo possession, sidestepping a potential life sentence under RICO provisions that could have linked him to organized gang activity, potentially including murders. He pleaded guilty in April 2024 and received his sentence in August of that year. Now expand the lens further, because Hurd did not materialize in federal court out of thin air. His criminal record is a timeline that maps directly onto a life lived in the trenches of South Central LA. Felony arrests dating back to 2014, attempted second-degree armed robbery, grand theft, transporting controlled substances. These were not random bad decisions by an otherwise stable individual. These were the predictable outputs of an environment where 55th Street Crip affiliation was the architecture of daily survival, where loyalty to the set was simultaneously a lifeline and a noose, where the economic options available to a young black man in that particular zip code were so narrow that the illegal ones did not feel like choices. They felt like the only doors that were not locked. By 2021, he had already cycled through probation violations, done time, lost a tooth in a brutal jail fight, and navigated the suffocating internal politics of incarceration, where Crips had to align against rival factions or face total isolation. A GoFundMe campaign organized by Andrew Callahan of Channel 5 for Hurd's legal defense even referenced a schizophrenia diagnosis, adding clinical medical weight to what casual observers had already noticed in his content: the manic energy, the erratic shifts, the moments where genuine vulnerability cracked through the bravado like daylight through a prison window.
I'm like, oh, he looking good.
That reaction, seeing Hurd post-release and being surprised he looked healthy, looked whole, looked like a man who had not been completely dismantled by the system, speaks to the unspoken expectation everyone carries about what prison does to people. The assumption is destruction. The surprise is survival. And for one brief, beautiful window on January 30th, it looked like the survival story would have a happy ending. The general is home. 55th Street rejoice. And then the system did what the system always does. Stepping out of federal custody, Hurd was immediately seized by LA County sheriffs on a state probation violation connected to the same 2023 gun case. Not the next day. Not a week later, after he had a chance to eat a meal, hug his grandmother, or take a breath that did not taste like institutional air. Immediately, a flash hold, a transfer to county jail, potentially up to 90 additional days behind bars. No Jumper broke the full rearrest story down, and the internet, which had been celebrating just hours earlier, detonated. X timelines erupted with confusion, rage, conspiracy theories. Some called it a setup orchestrated by rivals who tipped off authorities. Others pointed to the system itself, arguing that a known, documented, face-tattooed Crip with a massive public platform was never going to be allowed to walk without additional extraction. Still others went darker, whispering that the rearrest was cover for something more sinister, that smoked was not metaphorical.
You still
His
think,
probation says he can't drink?
you think he gonna be just getting drunk?
That question, casual as it sounds, is a scalpel cutting right to the core of what post-release life looks like for someone in Heard's position. The probation conditions: no drinking, no associating with known gang members, no being in certain areas, no doing the things that constitute the entirety of the life you have ever known, are not designed for success. They are designed for measurement. They are designed so that when you fail, and the system fully expects you to fail, there is a clean paper trail documenting your non-compliance. The drinking question is not about alcohol. It is about whether a man who has spent his entire adult life oscillating between cells and streets can execute the kind of monastic discipline that probation demands from someone who has never been given the tools, the resources, or the environment to practice discipline in the first place.
I got violated like 2-3 times hanging with 4 extras.
That right there is the confession that mirrors Crip Mac's situation with surgical, devastating precision, violated for associating with gang members. Think about what that means in practical, on-the-ground terms. You grow up in a neighborhood where everyone you know, your childhood friends, your cousins, the people who looked out for you when no one else did, is affiliated. The system says freedom. The conditions say isolation. You cannot inhabit both worlds, and the system knows it, which is why recidivism rates look the way they look, which is why the revolving door of incarceration keeps spinning, and which is why a man like Trevor Heard, with 55th Street tattooed on his body and embedded in his identity, is perpetually one conversation, one handshake, one Instagram live away from being back in a cell. That is not rehabilitation. That is a trap with a timer. Smoke. Now let's chop it up about the title straight up, cause this where the whole story cracks open into something way uglier than a probation hold and way more telling than any court paper. Crip Mac instantly smoked after prison release. That joint detonated across every timeline, every group chat, every comment section that stayed locked in where hip-hop and the streets intersect, and in the ecosystem of rap media where death hoaxes run through the wire with the same frequency and reliability as weather reports, where bodies drop consistent enough that any headline claiming another casualty hit with instant knee-jerk believability. The claim ain't need a single shred of proof to catch fire. It ain't need a source. It ain't need no confirmation. All it needed was a name folks recognized and a verb that made they blood run cold. The facts, however, assembled an entirely different picture. There is zero verified evidence that Trevor Heard was killed following his release from federal custody. Not from law enforcement, not from family, not from the associates who were literally filming his release footage hours before the rumor machine started grinding. What actually happened, the immediate rearrest by LA County on state probation charges, created a vacuum of information, a sudden silence where celebration footage had been, and the internet filled that vacuum with its own worst, most paranoid, most addictively catastrophic instincts. When Heard vanished from public view after his release, when the homecoming posts stopped appearing and the silence stretched from hours to days, people did what people in the hip-hop community have been conditioned to do by years of genuine loss. They assumed the worst. Smoked could mean killed. It could mean roasted, humiliated, cooked online. It could mean high. The linguistic ambiguity was the accelerant, and social media was the match. And by the time the truth about the probation hold surfaced, the death rumor had already metastasized into a full-blown urban legend. This phenomenon is not isolated to Crip Mac. It is a structural feature of how the internet processes black male rappers with gang affiliations. Viral death hoaxes have plagued the rap world for years. Every time a rapper goes quiet, whether for jail, rehab, a mental health break, or simply not posting for 48 hours, the rumor mill activates with the mechanical predictability of an assembly line. The actual murder of Drakeo the Ruler at Once Upon a Time in LA in 2021 supercharged the paranoia, creating a template where any silence from a known gang-affiliated artist triggers the same fearful calculus. No posts equals something happened equals he is gone. Someone sees a post about Crip Mac being taken into custody. Someone else processes taken as taken out. A third person screenshots it, adds a fire emoji, an RIP, and gone too soon, and suddenly it is canonical. One obscure thread even floated a suicide narrative post-release, which appears to be crossed wires with the well-documented discussions about Heard's mental health, the schizophrenia diagnosis referenced in his Channel 5 GoFundMe, the bipolar disorder associates have described, the untreated conditions that add clinical volatility to an already volatile existence. The confusion was compounded by the unfortunate reality of name overlap in simultaneous cases. Mac Critter, a completely different individual with a phonetically adjacent name, was facing murder charges during the exact same window. Fans with casual interest conflated the two. Media outlets that cover gang culture with the surgical precision of a sledgehammer did not bother to differentiate. The result was an informational slurry that painted Heard as dead, dying, disappeared, or in mortal danger, when in reality, he was sitting in an LA County holding facility, probably watching his own death rumor trend from behind plexiglass. February 2nd, 2026 brought the next act, court. The judge held the authority to revoke Heard's probation entirely, could have sent him back for the full remaining term, stacked additional time, buried him in the system's digestive tract for months or years. That worst-case scenario did not materialize. After arguments from both prosecution and defense, the hold was sustained briefly, and then, on February 21st, 2026, Heard walked out for real. Not a false start, not a bait and switch. Actual, physical, documented freedom. Video captured the emotional release, Heard stepping into open air, overwhelmed, the kind of raw footage that turns a man into a symbol, whether he consented to it or not. Welcome home reels flooded across Instagram and TikTok. The narrative pivoted from tragedy to triumph in a single news cycle, which is exactly how the internet metabolizes black men from the streets, either eulogizing them or deifying them, with absolutely no emotional bandwidth allocated for the boring, human, complicated middle ground where a man just wants to eat a plate of Popeyes without somebody writing a headline about it.
I had to go to the judge and tell him what was going on. Like, hey, because they were trying to violate me for living in the hood.
That clip strips the legal apparatus down to its skeletal truth, and it is the same truth that governed every second of Heard's post-release experience. Gang injunctions, court-ordered restrictions that dictate where documented gang members can live, who they can be seen with, what hours they can be outside, what streets they can walk on, are the invisible electric fences that keep people like Heard perpetually incarcerated, even when they are technically, legally, on paper free. You are on probation. You are a documented member of the 55th Street neighborhood Crips. You live in the neighborhood that bears the name of your set. Your mere physical existence in your own zip code is a potential violation. Your presence in the community you were raised in is probable cause. Your life, as you have always lived it, is a crime. Legal challenges have been mounted against these injunctions, with lawsuits arguing they are fundamentally unconstitutional. And some of those challenges have actually succeeded. But the system adapts, renames the same restrictions under new bureaucratic labels, and keeps the machinery of containment operational under fresh paint.
It has, because people have filed lawsuits on it already.
The media dynamics surrounding Heard's story added yet another combustible layer to the entire situation. Accusations surfaced and gained real traction that No Jumper's Adam 22 had systematically exploited Heard's arrest-release-rearrest cycle for content, mining the worst moments of a black man's life for views, engagement, metrics, and advertising revenue. Others extended the critique to the broader media ecosystem, arguing that white content creators documenting gang culture, including Andrew Callahan, despite his demonstrably genuine advocacy through the GoFundMe Legal Defense Fund, were participating in a long-established pattern of commodifying black pain for predominantly non-black audiences. Whether those critiques land with full accuracy or not, they articulate a tension that is real, measurable, and unresolved. Crip Mac's story generates tens of millions of impressions across platforms, and the vast majority of the infrastructure profiting from those impressions, the platforms, the channels, the media companies, the advertisers, does not look like the man whose suffering powers the content. The General's next chapter. So where do Trevor Heard, Crip Mac, the 55th Street General, the man the internet spent 3 whole weeks going back and forth between mourning and celebrating, actually stand right now? As of February 22nd, 2026, the day after his verified, confirmed, no takebacks release from LA County custody, the answer is free. Not metaphorically free, not that conditionally free where cuz is out on bail, or posted up in some transitional spot that only count as freedom on a technicality. Free, walking, breathing that unregulated air, making his own calls on what to eat and when to crash trash for the first time in years. His Instagram at 55th Street is live and active, flooded with post-release content, homecoming footage, live streams, the early rumblings of new heat in the stash, interviews already circulating on No Jumper and affiliated channels. The tone across all of it is that cocktail of gratitude and defiance that every single soul who ever did a bid and touched back down recognize on a molecular level, thankful to be standing outside, heated about the years the system snatched, locked in on reclaiming what was lost, and fully aware that the machine ain't done with you just because it cracked the door open. But the shadows are patient, and they have not retreated. Hurd's affiliation with the 55th Street neighborhood Crips is not a chapter he closed in prison. It is the tattoo on his face. It is the name in his Instagram handle. It is the identity that manufactured his fame, generated his audience, built his brand, and it is simultaneously the identity that keeps law enforcement surveillance locked on him with the persistence of a tracking algorithm. The beefs with Hoovers, with Bloods, with rival Crip factions who view his internet celebrity as a violation of street protocol did not dissolve while he was in federal custody. They fermented. The DP incidents from before his incarceration, disciplinary actions imposed by his own gang for perceived violations of internal codes, including beatdowns that went viral and exposed fractures within the 55th Street set, remain indexed on the internet forever, searchable by anyone with a grudge and a phone. His op-goblin persona, the confrontational character that fueled deadly rivalries and generated millions of views, is the double-edged sword that defines his entire existence, his greatest commercial asset and his most dangerous personal liability, inseparable from each other.
It ain't never coming off. You remove tattoos, you might as well put a dress on.
That line is the whole thesis, compressed into a single sentence. The tattoos stay, the affiliation stays. The identity is not negotiable, not erasable, not something you shed like a costume when the cameras stop rolling or the probation officer starts questioning. In a system that explicitly demands disassociation as a precondition for continued freedom. Stop claiming your set, stop posting gang content, stop associating with known members, stop being who you fundamentally are. Hurd's refusal to erase himself is simultaneously an act of cultural defiance and a self-imposed obstacle to the clean, compliant, repentant narrative the court wants to observe. Every probation officer who reviews his social media sees a man who has not been rehabilitated by their institutional metrics. Every judge who pulls up his Instagram sees recidivism loading, and every fan who watches that same content sees something the system cannot quantify. Authenticity, the rarest and most bankable commodity in the attention economy. That authenticity is precisely why the channel grew, why streams generate revenue, why merchandise moves units, and why his estimated net worth still sits somewhere in the 500K to one mailer range despite prison draining a significant portion. The prison experience itself became content, and potent content at that. Phone calls from federal custody discussing fights with rival factions, adapting to the rhythms of institutional life with braids and a forced positivity, navigating the internal politics of incarceration where alliances with groups like the Mexican Mafia could mean the difference between safety and a trip to the infirmary. Hot New Hip Hop documented his sentencing in extensive detail, and the comment sections beneath that coverage became a referendum on the central question no one can resolve. Is Trevor Hurd a victim of systemic targeting? A black man from South Central whose zip code predetermined his trajectory through the criminal justice system? Or is he a man reaping the consequences of choices he made with full awareness of their risks? The honest answer is that both things can be true simultaneously, that systemic oppression and personal responsibility are not mutually exclusive categories, and that the internet absolutely does not have the emotional or intellectual bandwidth to hold both ideas at once.
Dillinger like, oh, there's Jap. And I'm like, Cud, where Cud? Cud next door already wrapping his hands up and ready.
Prison fights. Beefs settled with wrapped fists behind concrete walls. Someone next door is already preparing for violence before the confrontation has even been verbally initiated. That is the world Hurd navigated for years. And that is the world whose reflexes and instincts he carries with him back onto the streets of South Central. The question that matters now, the only question, is whether survival mode, the setting that kept him alive inside, can coexist with the freedom mode his fans want to see, his family needs to see, and his future demands. Can the man who describes settling institutional scores with violence pivot to studio sessions, brand partnerships, and active fatherhood without the gravitational pull of the streets yanking him backward? Can the legal system, with its probation officers and mandatory check-ins and gang injunctions and social media media surveillance provide him any actual space to become something other than what his criminal file says he is? The immediate future is loaded with both promise and peril in roughly equal measure. Post-release interviews are already circulating, generating the kind of engagement numbers that make platform algorithms salivate. New music is in the pipeline. Heard has teased tracks and collaborations that could capitalize on the massive global attention his release-arrest-release saga generated. Documentary interest has not cooled. Callahan's Channel 5 coverage laid the groundwork for a potential feature-length treatment that could conceivably land at major festivals. The flip side of that coin is equally real and equally sharp. Diss tracks from active rivals like Milk 74 continue to circulate, keeping beefs warm that Heard may not have the luxury of ignoring. Probation conditions mean that any misstep, a failed drug test, an association deemed inappropriate, a social media post interpreted as gang activity, sends him directly back to custody without the elaborate legal proceedings a new arrest would require. And the mental health challenges that predated his fame, the schizophrenia, the bipolar episodes that associates have described, do not take vacations because the cameras are rolling and the streams are climbing. What makes Crip Mac's story reverberate beyond the spectacle of gang culture and viral content is the universality buried underneath the set-claiming and face tattoos and ghost gun charges. At its most reduced, this is a story about a human being who wanted belonging and found it in the only institution that would accept him without conditions. A man who wanted respect and earned it through violence because violence was the only currency his environment recognized and rewarded. A man who wanted fame and achieved it through radical transparency, only to discover that the same visibility that generates income also generates law enforcement scrutiny, rival attention, media exploitation, and an audience that consumes his pain as entertainment while debating whether he deserves empathy or accountability. He fed homeless people in his neighborhood between bids. He wept for his grandmother during court appearances that were live streamed to millions. He cracks jokes about Popeye's chicken while carrying psychiatric diagnoses that would challenge anyone's stability in a comfortable suburban home, let alone in a federal cell or on streets where his face functions simultaneously as a billboard, a brand, and a target. If you enjoyed this video, click on any of the cards on your screen.